Have you ever felt lost, directionless, like you're waiting for a promise that never seems to come? Maybe you're struggling with doubt, wondering why your dreams feel so far away. What if I told you there was a man just like you? Someone who waited, who feared, but who chose to believe even when everything seemed impossible. This is the story of Abraham, the father of all nations, a journey marked by radical faith, painful decisions, and divine promises that changed the course of history. As you dive into his story, you'll see not only God's plan for Abraham, but the powerful reflection of what he wants to do in your life. Get ready, the same call that transformed Abraham's destiny might be the one echoing in your heart right now. A voice thundered not into my ears, but into the depths of my soul. Leave your country, your people, and your father's household and go to the land I will show you. It wasn't sound as we know it, but a holy summons that split my spirit wide open like lightning across a silent sky. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. These were not mere promises, they were declarations that rewrote the very fabric of my destiny. I am Abraham, once Abram, born in Ur of the Chaldeans, a flourishing city where temples reached for the heavens and men bowed to carved idols. My father, Terah, was esteemed in the eyes of our people, yet in the midst of routine and ritual, something stirred in me, something divine. When that unseen voice called, it wasn't just a command, it was a breaking. A severing of the old world and the birth of a journey that would alter the history of nations. Genesis 12 would forever echo in my bones, I will make your name great. And from that moment, everything changed. With trembling hands and a heart both terrified and alive, I gathered Sarai, my beloved wife, and Lot, my nephew, along with our servants and possessions, and we stepped into the unknown. Our caravan moved like a whisper through the lands, from Ur to Haran, and then further still to the land called Canaan. Canaan, where the hills rise like ancient altars and vineyards cover the valleys like a song of plenty. The land was alive, yet it was not ours. Canaanites ruled fortified cities, their languages strange, their gods many. Still the voice guided me. In Shechem, under the towering oak of Moreh, the Lord appeared again and confirmed what my spirit longed to hear. To your offspring I will give this land. I built an altar there. I could not yet see the fulfillment, but I chose to believe. Faith was no longer a concept. It was action. It was motion. It was a man leaving the known for the promise of something sacred. Have you heard this story before? Tell us in the comments what you would do if you were in Abraham's place. I journeyed on, pitching my tent between Bethel and Ai, and there too I built an altar, invoking the name of the Lord with each stone laid in place. But no sooner had we arrived than the land groaned with famine. The soil that promised life now withheld it. My heart questioned, was this truly the promised land? In desperation, we turned south to Egypt, where the Nile fed the fields and Pharaoh reigned in splendor. I feared for Sarai, for she was beautiful, and the ways of Egypt were ruthless. I told her to say she was my sister, a choice born of fear, not faith. Pharaoh took her into his palace, and though my hands held wealth, livestock, silver, gold, my soul was uneasy. Then the Lord struck Pharaoh's house with plagues. The truth emerged. Pharaoh, enraged and deceived, cast us out, but not empty-handed. Egypt had tested us, and though I had faltered, God remained faithful. From the wealth of Egypt, I returned to Canaan, back to the place of my first altar between Bethel and Ai. Lot was still with me, and both our households had grown, so much that the land could no longer sustain us together. Quarrels broke out among our herdsmen, tension thick like storm clouds. I looked at Lot, the son of my late brother, and offered peace. Let there be no strife between us, I said. If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. He chose the lush Jordan Valley, the land near Sodom, gleaming like Eden before judgment. I remained in the highlands of Canaan, trusting the voice once more. And again it came, look around from where you are, all the land you see I will give to you and your descendants forever. I wandered the breadth of the land, not as a conqueror, but as a pilgrim walking on a promise. By the oaks of Mamre and Hebron, I pitched my tent once more and built another altar, marking the land with worship. Then one day, beneath the noonday sun, 3 men appeared by my tent. I ran to meet them, bowing low. Please stay a while, I pleaded. Rest beneath the tree, let me bring water for your feet, bread to refresh you. I hastened, commanding Sarah to bake cakes, selecting a calf for the servant to prepare, and serving it all beneath the ancient oaks. Then came the question, sharp as prophecy, where is your wife, Sarah? Inside the tent, I answered. One of them, no ordinary man, declared, I will return next year and Sarah will have a son. Sarah laughed within herself. The absurdity of it, her womb long silent, our years far spent. But the Lord's words pierced through doubt. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Her laughter was fear dressed as denial. But the Lord saw. The Lord knew. Yes, you did laugh. And yet, he did not rebuke her. He promised. As the men rose to leave, their gaze turned toward Sodom. And the Lord, in divine counsel, paused. Should he hide from Abraham what he was about to do? I stood still, heart burning, on the threshold between heaven's secret and the fate of cities. Lot's guests had barely settled into his home when chaos erupted outside. From the youngest to the oldest, the men of Sodom surrounded the house, their demands chilling in their depravity. They shouted for Lot to send out the visitors so they could abuse them, completely unaware they were angels. Lot, stepping outside and shutting the door behind him, pleaded with the mob not to commit such evil. In desperation, and with a heart torn between horror and duty, he even offered his 2 virgin daughters, an unthinkable act that highlighted the sacred value he placed on hospitality. But the mob only grew more enraged, mocking him and threatening to treat him worse than the strangers. As they surged forward to break down the door, the angels acted. With divine power, they struck the men with sudden blindness, leaving them grasping at the walls, unable to find the entrance. In the eerie silence that followed, the angels turned to Lot and revealed the truth. The city was doomed. God had seen enough. Well, we're almost at the end, but I noticed that you still haven't left your like. This is very important for YouTube to continue sharing our content with you, so leaving a like is free and will help you. Thank you, and let's get back to the video. The angels urged Lot to act swiftly, to gather his wife, his daughters, and his sons-in-law and flee the city. But when Lot warned his sons-in-law, they laughed. They thought he was joking, blinded not by the angels but by spiritual apathy. As dawn broke and Lot still lingered, the angels took him by the hand, him, his wife, and his 2 daughters, and led them out of Sodom. It was not by Lot's merit, but by the mercy of the Lord. Once outside the city, they were given a clear command: flee to the mountains and don't look back. Lot, fearing the journey's difficulty, begged instead to seek refuge in a small town nearby, Zor. The angels agreed, and Lot and his family made their way there. As soon as they reached Zor and the sun rose above the horizon, the heavens opened. Fire and sulfur rained down on Sodom and Gomorrah, annihilating everything. Lot's wife, disobeying the divine command, looked back, and in that instant she was turned into a pillar of salt, a lasting image of the danger of disobedience. From a distance, I watched the smoke rise like a furnace from the land that once held thriving cities. It was a grim reminder that the judgment of God is real and unrelenting. Yet, even in destruction, God remembered his promise to me and spared Lot. Divine justice had fallen, but mercy had not been absent. In time, I journeyed to a region called Negev. There once again fear led me to falter. Concerned for my safety, I told the local king, Abimelech, that Sarah was my sister. That night, God intervened with forceful clarity. He appeared to Abimelech in a dream, warning him not to touch Sarah, for she was a married woman, my wife. Terrified, Abimelech pleaded his innocence, explaining that both Sarah and I had led him to believe otherwise. God acknowledged his honesty but emphasized that it was his own intervention that had prevented a great sin. He instructed Abimelech to return Sarah to me, noting that I was a prophet who would intercede for him. At daybreak, Abimelech summoned his court and recounted the divine dream, sending ripples of fear through his household. He then called me to him, his face a mix of anger and confusion. "Why did you do this?" he asked. I explained my fear, believing there was no fear of God in that land and that they would kill me for my wife. I told him the truth. Sarah was indeed my half-sister, and we had made an agreement long ago to say she was my sister whenever we traveled. To make amends, Abimelech returned Sarah, gifted us with livestock and servants, and gave us the freedom to settle anywhere in his land. He also gave Sarah 1,000 silver coins to publicly restore her honor. Because of this incident, God had closed the wombs of all the women in Abimelech's household. But when I prayed for them, he heard me. God healed them, reopening their wombs, a demonstration of his mercy and power, even toward those outside the covenant. In the midst of all this, God's promise to Sarah and me came to pass. The Lord visited Sarah, and she conceived in her old age just as he had declared. Our laughter was reborn, not from disbelief but from pure joy. When our son was born, we named him Isaac, meaning he will laugh. On the 8th day, I circumcised him, following the covenant commandment. I was 100 years old when Isaac was born. Sarah could hardly believe it. "God has brought me laughter," she said, "and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." That moment marked not just a personal joy, but the unfolding of a divine plan. As Isaac grew and was weaned, we celebrated with a great feast. It felt like a new era, but joy was quickly shadowed by conflict. Sarah noticed Ishmael, the son Hagar had borne me, mocking Isaac. Fueled by concern for Isaac's inheritance, Sarah demanded that I send Hagar and her son away. My heart broke. Ishmael was still my son. I wrestled with the decision until God himself spoke. "Do not be distressed," he said. "Listen to Sarah, for it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. But I will also make the son of the slave into a nation, because he is your offspring." With a heavy heart, I gave Hagar and Ishmael provisions and sent them away. In the wilderness they wandered until the water ran out. Hagar, unable to bear watching her son die, placed him under a bush and wept. But God heard Ishmael's cries. An angel called out to Hagar and opened her eyes to a well of water, saving them. God's promise held firm. Ishmael grew up in the desert, became a skilled archer, and eventually married an Egyptian woman. God had not abandoned him. Later, Abimelech and his army commander, Phicol, came to me, acknowledging that God was with me in everything I did. They proposed a covenant of peace, and though disputes had arisen over a well, we resolved the conflict peacefully. We sealed our agreement in Beersheba, well of the oath, a place of peace, a promise kept, a testimony to a faithful God. After many years marked by divine encounters and trials of faith, the final chapters of my journey revealed not only the depth of God's covenant, but the weight of legacy. I had become a seasoned man, shaped by both miracles and heartbreak. One day, in the stillness of reflection, the Lord called upon me again, not with promises this time, but with a test that would pierce the heart of any father. "Abraham," he said. "Here I am," I replied without hesitation. And then came the command, "Take Isaac, your only son, the one you love so deeply, and offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." The very breath seemed to leave my lungs. Yet, despite the turmoil within, I did not delay. At dawn, I rose, saddled my donkey, split the wood for the offering, and began the journey with Isaac and 2 servants, my heart heavy with sorrow but anchored in trust. For 3 days we traveled toward the region of Moriah. Each step was a prayer, each hour a battle between obedience and the natural love of a father. When the place came into view, I turned to the servants and said, "Stay here with the donkey. Isaac and I will go worship, and we will return." My voice did not waver. Deep within, I believed that the God who had given Isaac miraculously could raise him again. Isaac, curious and serene, carried the wood while I held the fire and the knife. "Father," he asked, "we have the fire and wood, but where is the lamb for the offering?" I looked at my son, this miracle of promise, and answered, "God himself will provide." And so we climbed. On that mountain, I built an altar, arranged the wood, bound Isaac, and placed him on it. When I reached for the knife, a voice thundered from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Here I am," I replied. The angel of the Lord stopped me, declaring that now it was clear. I feared God and had not withheld even my only son. Then I saw it, a ram caught by its horns in the thicket. I took it and offered it instead of Isaac, and named the place Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. That moment became a turning point not just for me but for all who would come after. God affirmed his covenant again, swearing by himself that because I had not withheld my son, he would bless me beyond measure. "Your descendants," he said, "will be as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore." With my son beside me, we descended that mountain changed, more than just father and son but bearers of a legacy sealed in obedience. We returned to Beersheba, our hearts filled with awe, our spirits overwhelmed by the God who tests and provides. Yet not long after, a heavy sorrow fell upon my household. Sarah, my beloved, the woman who had walked with me through deserts, doubt, and divine promises, passed away at 127 years old. Her death in Kiriath Arba left me broken. I mourned her deeply, weeping over the emptiness her absence carved into my soul. Though I had wandered this land for decades, I still had no ground to call my own, not even for a burial. So I went to the Hittites and pleaded, "I am a stranger among you. Sell me a burial site, that I may lay my wife to rest." Ephron, a generous man, offered me his field and cave at Machpelah. Though he insisted on giving it freely, I insisted on paying the full price in the presence of witnesses, securing it legally and honorably. And there, in that cave across from Mamre, I buried Sarah, the first stone laid in what would become our family tomb. That field in Canaan became sacred to me, a symbol of God's promise and my commitment to it. Even in death, Sarah was a part of the unfolding of that covenant. The field, the cave, the price. All of it was a testimony that though I had been a foreigner, the land was now mine in faith and deed. In time, the ache of loss gave way to companionship again. I married Keturah, and through her, God expanded my family. She bore me sons, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Each of them carried a fragment of the blessing God had declared over me. Jokshan's lineage gave rise to Sheba and Dedan, peoples who would play their roles in the unfolding of history. Yet of all my children, Isaac remained the chosen one, the bearer of the promise. To him I gave everything I owned, for he was the fulfillment of the covenant made with Sarah. The others I blessed and sent eastward with gifts, but Isaac stayed near, rooted in the destiny God had written for our line. And so, the years passed. I lived to be 175 years old, full of days and deeply satisfied, not because life had been easy, but because I had walked it with God. When the moment of my death came, I closed my eyes in peace. I had seen the invisible. I had heard the voice of the Almighty. I had held the promise in my arms and laid it on an altar. And I had walked away knowing that God is faithful. Isaac and Ishmael, sons once separated by circumstance, came together to lay me beside Sarah in the cave of Machpelah. That sacred ground bore witness to a divine story, a covenant written not in ink, but in obedience and trust. If this journey stirred your spirit, wait until you hear about my grandson Jacob. His story is one of dreams, wrestlings, and the birth of a nation. Thank you for watching this far. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue receiving the next content. Until the next video, and may God bless you.